What if I told you that beneath the unforgiving sands of the Middle East, a secret lay buried for 5,000 years, hidden so well, even the world's most advanced technology couldn't find it? This isn't just a story of lost treasure or forgotten kings. This is the discovery that could rewrite history, shake governments, and challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient power. Beneath the scorched silence of the Middle Eastern desert, far below the reach of history books and digital maps, something stirred for the first time in 5 millennia. It wasn't found by accident, not by treasure hunters or military scans. This was uncovered by sheer obsession, a decades-long pursuit fueled by rumors, ancient scrolls, and anomalies buried under centuries of denial. What they found wasn't just a tomb. It was the ignition point of a historical explosion that no one, not governments, not theologians, not even AI, was prepared to face. They said King Solomon's tomb didn't exist, that it was allegory, a mythical burial lost to sand, myth, and time. But the sand didn't forget, and when a freak rainstorm carved through the limestone like a surgical blade, it revealed something wrong, too symmetrical, too deliberate, glinting beneath a veil of runoff. A slab of engineered white stone, colder than its surroundings, completely resistant to erosion. On its surface, a pattern, spiraled etchings shaped like sound waves, and a single glyph in ancient Proto-Sinaitic script that matched the seal on Solomon's known temple artifacts. It was the first real sign in centuries. But this wasn't archaeology anymore. It was a countdown. If you want to uncover every shocking detail with me and dive deeper into the secrets locked away for millennia, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because what comes next will change everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. No one believed Dr. Emily Carter when she first proposed it. Her work had been dismissed by every institution that worshipped traditional timelines. But her obsession with the tribute gap, a tax exemption found in Babylonian records, led her to a map that didn't exist in any modern database. A grid of trade routes, rainfall markers, and a peculiar blank zone avoided by merchants for over 2,500 years. She triangulated the anomalies using ancient flood cycles, friction data in stone transport scrolls, and finally, synthetic aperture radar. What she found, hidden in plain sight, was a perfectly square plot of land that had never been disturbed, not even by nomadic settlement. And just beneath it, magnetic resistance, not natural, not random, something buried and still generating a pulse. The moment her team began scanning, instruments started failing. Standard ground-penetrating radar misfired. Drone GPS began looping, but thermal signatures lit up one section, a triangular wedge under the soil where no triangle should naturally form. That was the breach point. They drilled just enough to reveal the capstone and then stopped. The rest fell under its own weight. A corridor opened, silent, black, airless, carved not by hand, but by something else. The walls weren't chiseled. They were poured, smoothed, shaped with a material that tested harder than granite, but lighter than limestone. Embedded into them, channels filled with crystalline dust that responded to light, scattering it like a prism across unreadable symbols. And deeper inside, traps, not the cartoon kind, but pressure-sensitive plates designed to collapse entire corridors. False turns, echo loops. One chamber redirected sound to simulate movement where there was none. The place wasn't just meant to protect a king, it was meant to confuse time. But still, the team pressed on. They followed a corridor that narrowed into a funnel, carved with impeccable geometry. On the final wall, a gold inlay depicting 12 lions, each standing beneath a different celestial constellation, not zodiac signs. Stellar alignments recorded from a vantage point lost to modern mapping. And in the center, beneath the largest lion, Leo, a circular depression in the stone. They pressed it. Nothing happened. Until 32 seconds later, the corridor shifted by precisely 11 centimeters. They weren't just navigating a tomb, they were decoding a machine. What made Solomon dangerous wasn't just his wisdom, it was what he encoded into stone, story, and silence. He wasn't simply a king who ruled with words, He was a systems builder. His legendary rulings weren't moral tales. They were psychological models. His temple wasn't just a holy site, it was a time capsule. And his proverbs weren't poetry. They were encryption keys. Historical records place his reign between 970 and 931 BCE. He rose to the throne at just 12, in a kingdom already trembling from his father David's wars. But Solomon stabilized it, not with force, with trade, intellect, and alignment. Egypt to the Euphrates bent toward him. His alliances ran through Phoenicia, Sheba, and even into Proto-African kingdoms. But more than anything, he built temples, palaces, reservoirs, altars. And perhaps this vault, the one every record either erased or denied. The tomb had become the final question mark in his legacy, sought by kings, crusaders, Freemasons, spies. Some claimed it was beneath the Temple Mount, others under Mount Zion. Dozens of maps led to nowhere. Entire expeditions vanished, but Dr. Carter cracked it not with a compass, but with a forgotten receipt, a single line exempting a plot of land from temple tithe due to the presence of the sleeping king. They never expected the tomb to be this complex. The stone wasn't natural. The floor gave slightly, like something meant to absorb vibration. Even the air felt engineered, ionized, dry, unaged. And then came the first resonance, a pulse, barely audible, like breath through a flute, steady, repeating, coming from below. What were they standing on? Something alive with memory, something waiting. And as they prepared to open the next door, the one sealed with 7 concentric rings of bronze, each etched with a different planetary symbol, they knew this wasn't just history being uncovered. It was something else entirely, something that had been waiting 5,000 years for someone to finally listen. But what it wanted to say came with a warning, because the space beyond that chamber wasn't meant to be seen again. This wasn't just a sealed passage, it was a containment, a test. The ancients hadn't simply buried their dead, they'd buried truths too dangerous to survive the surface. What lay ahead wasn't a tomb, it was a deception, engineered, intentional, and alive. A psychological gauntlet wrapped in stone. And the deeper they went, the more it felt like the walls themselves were aware and watching. Initial scans meant nothing. Ground-penetrating radar showed chambers that didn't exist and missed tunnels that did. Everything was meant to confuse. Decoy vaults filled with rubble, corridors that spiraled into dead ends, pressure plates timed to natural footsteps. Every corner dared them to guess wrong, because guessing wrong meant collapse. At one point, a sudden drop in air pressure triggered a triggered mechanism overhead, ancient, rusted, but still functional. A ceiling slab shifted, groaned, then dropped a blast of sand and shattered bone fragments, remnants of others who had tried and failed centuries before. It wasn't just physical. This maze was psychological warfare, forcing the mind to doubt, the heart to hesitate. The tomb was alive with consequences. But then, after 47 hours of non-stop calculations and sensor sweeps, something appeared. A seal embedded in the floor. Not a lock, not a trap, but an emblem, Solomon's mark. The concentric sun lion etched in layered gold and hematite. They weren't lost, they were close. The AI flagged it immediately. A pattern emerged from its geometry, 3 interlocking circles containing 7 numerals. The sequence matched not any known calendar, but a version of the Hebrew lunar cycle reconstructed from Dead Sea Scroll fragments. The AI ran 300 million combinations before discovering what the ancients had hidden. The door ahead wasn't locked with force, it was encoded with time. The passage led to a final chamber, and what they thought was the door to the tomb. But it wasn't just sealed, it was mathematical. A 9-ton slab of alloyed basalt, reinforced with a pressure system so intricate it reacted to weight shifts as small as a coin. 7 pressure points had to be triggered in an exact order, with split-second synchronization. One misstep and the support system would destabilize, collapsing not just the door, but the entire chamber. With only minutes left on their oxygen reserves and seismic activity rising, the team split into 2 groups. One monitored the slab's vibration through fiber optic sensors, while the other calibrated force feedback devices to replicate ancient tools. The timing had to be perfect. There was no second chance. When the final pressure point clicked into place, a tone, deep and harmonic, reverberated through the floor. Dust swirled upward. The door began to groan. Not just open, decompress. A slow, aching release of pressure as ancient air exhaled across their skin, thick with incense, iron, and something else, something impossible to name. And then the room appeared. A chamber, untouched by sun or time, lit only by the shimmer of airborne gold particles reflecting off their lamps like stardust. At the center, Solomon's throne, solid gold, unblemished, guarded by 12 lions carved with such realism, their eyes still held glints of onyx. The structure hadn't decayed. It had been preserved, not by accident, but by science no longer understood. Around the throne, incense burners still intact, menorahs in perfect alignment, scrolls resting on golden stands as if the king had only just risen. Ritual oils still sealed in alabaster jars. Everything arranged with obsessive symmetry, and more than that, foreign items. Chinese silk perfectly folded, ivory from Central Africa, Indian saffron sealed inside resin to preserve its potency. It wasn't just a tomb, it was a time capsule for a global empire no one had truly grasped. But it wasn't the gold, the artifacts, or the impossible preservation that silenced the team. It was the object in the far corner, the one none of the scans had detected. A locked chest, jet black, trimmed with metal that defied every test, humming softly like a heartbeat. Symbols covered its surface, alien, unclassified, arranged in perfect fractal patterns that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Whatever lay inside wasn't meant to be buried, it was meant to be contained. And as the chest's faint vibration grew, something impossible happened. The very wall behind it trembled, then slowly began to shift, revealing a hidden passage no one knew existed. What lay beyond was beyond imagination. A vault so vast and overflowing with treasure, even Fort Knox would pale in comparison. Stacks of gold and precious gems stretched floor to ceiling, untouched by time or thief. Sacred vessels from the first temple, chalices and censers etched with Solomon's emblem, stood as silent witnesses, finally proving the legends true. But this wasn't just local wealth. Exotic artifacts traced the vastness of Solomon's empire. Chinese silk, its threads shimmering with ancient dyes. Central African ivory, carved by hands lost to history. Indian spices sealed airtight in glass jars, still aromatic after millennia. This was proof. Solomon's reach wasn't limited to Israel. His influence spanned continents, trade routes stretching from Africa to Asia. Nestled among the gold was something stranger, a shimmering blue stone, glowing softly beneath the torchlight. It matched descriptions of the mythical shamir, the legendary worm said to cut stone without metal tools. Scientists extracted microscopic fragments from a nearby chiseled altar and confirmed its composition was unlike anything in the modern periodic table, a tool that defied technology and time. But amid this dazzling fortune, the most powerful artifact was not gold or gems, but words, Solomon's own writings, etched on thin copper plates carefully preserved in leather scroll cases. Some questioned his own obsession with wealth, quoting Ecclesiastes, "He who loves money will not be satisfied with money." In those words lay a secret, the wisdom of a man who understood the true cost of power. Deeper still, behind false walls and hidden compartments, the team uncovered a forbidden chamber of secrets. Within it, coded scrolls encrypted with patterns no modern computer could fully decipher, their scripts weaving math, music, and mysticism into a single cipher. Alongside them, a mechanical device stunned scientists, a proto-astronomical calculator, its precision rivaling modern technology, designed to predict eclipses and planetary alignments centuries in advance. Near the device lay a crystal orb filled with shifting liquid patterns that defied chemical analysis. Its surface rippled as if alive, and attempts to touch it triggered subtle vibrations. It was unlike anything known, a mystery in liquid form. Gold-threaded robes and jars filled with extinct spices spoke of lost knowledge, ancient preservation techniques, textile craftsmanship erased by time and conquest. The chamber's obsidian floor was carved with detailed maps of tunnels beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount, paths unknown to modern archaeology, hinting at secrets still buried beneath the city. On the ceilings, inscriptions revealed a side of Solomon rarely seen, a man poetic and vulnerable, pouring personal prayers into stone, wrestling with doubt and morality. Star charts proved Israelite astronomical mastery, dating back 3 millennia, detailing constellations and celestial events with scientific accuracy that reshaped our understanding of ancient science. Political letters hidden behind false panels disclosed alliances with Egypt and Phoenicia, diplomatic strategies inscribed in fading ink that revealed a kingdom as much a political chessboard as a spiritual center. Medical texts described honey-based treatments now validated by modern science, proving that some ancient remedies held wisdom lost to time. Yet not all inscriptions welcomed discovery. Warnings etched in deep grooves spoke of great calamity should the tomb be opened, hinting at a buried curse, a final message from Solomon or his priests that some knowledge was never meant for the living. But the tomb didn't stop speaking. Past the final ring of stone, beyond the final arch, more chambers revealed themselves, and in one, sealed behind sheets of limestone and gold, her name. Not whispered, but declared. Her name had echoed for millennia, mystified in scripture, exoticized in legend. But now, chiseled into alabaster panels and etched onto gold leaf, the Queen of Sheba stepped out of myth and into the archaeological record. She wasn't just a royal consort or a mysterious visitor. She was a strategist, a scholar, a sovereign in her own right. Inscriptions described her as an equal, Solomon's intellectual match, a partner in trade, diplomacy, and technology. Together, they had built something radical, a cross-continental alliance fusing Hebrew law, African engineering, and spiritual codes from both worlds. Ceremonial jewelry showed unmistakable fusion, Nubian lapis wrapped in Hebrew inscriptions. A set of tools bore both Sheban and Israelite iconography, hinting at shared innovation. And amid the artifacts, agricultural tablets, crop rotation plans, irrigation diagrams, soil chemistry notes, all centuries ahead of their time. This wasn't romance, it was an empire of minds. And then science stepped in. Archaeologists expected stone blocks and burial sand. What they found instead was a construction technique more precise than anything in known Bronze Age engineering. Stone seams so tight, not even a strand of hair could slide between. Materials bonded with a lime-based compound that, under electron microscopes, resembled molecular cement. A preservation method rivaling Egypt's finest mummies was embedded in the linen fibers, preserving organ tissue that should have long turned to dust. Astonishingly, even the textiles told stories. Climate data extracted from the wooden sarcophagus rings, resin samples, and cloth fibers began to reconstruct ancient weather systems, rainfall, drought patterns, even microclimates across ancient Israel. That information is now feeding into today's climate prediction models. Solomon's tomb isn't just changing history, it's rewriting science. And just when scholars thought they'd seen it all, the philosophy began to speak. More than 300 catalogued artifacts now sit in climate-controlled labs, each one not just a relic, but a message. Personal tablets inscribed by Solomon himself dig into mortality, justice, governance, the limits of human knowledge. One passage speaks of ruling without losing one's soul. Another of dreaming so far into the future, he feared he'd gone mad. AI-assisted translations are revealing linguistic complexity centuries ahead of its time, syntax patterns that eerily resemble modern programming logic. Now, the site has become the epicenter of a global intellectual storm. Historians, theologians, engineers, AI ethicists, even quantum physicists are descending upon it, not to raid it, but to understand it. The tomb wasn't just designed to preserve a body, It was a vault for consciousness, for legacy, for unanswered questions humanity hasn't even known how to ask, until now. And as Dr. Elaine Carter stood at the threshold, cameras rolling, air thick with ancient incense, she whispered the words that now echo through every lecture hall and late-night think tank. We didn't just uncover a tomb. We uncovered the mind of a man who may have outthought time itself. Found that interesting? That was just the surface layer. Like, subscribe, and dig deeper with us, because the ancient world is waking up.